was so funny because we were like on a first name basis in the ER.
Hey there, I'm Elise and welcome back to my channel. So life in Korea is a lot of fun, and God forbid you ever get sick. I definitely don't want anyone out there to have to visit the emergency room. But when you think about it, a lot of the resources that explain like how to go to the doctor's office or how to go to the emergency room, they actually are kind of useless. They really didn't explain the information that you need to know. And that's the kind of thing that you don't realize until you actually find yourself in the emergency room or find yourself in the doctor's office. And then you're like, oh, that blog I read actually didn't tell me any of the things that I need to be able to say, any of the things that I can expect. But today we have an expert here, so I'm gonna ask all my questions about going to the emergency room. Like I said, I've never done it, I don't know. So these are real, authentic questions for everyone out there. But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram for more advice, stories, and peeks into my real life in Korea. You can also follow Christine, whose Instagram I will put somewhere down below. So Christine, what was your first experience like going to the emergency room? Like, why did you go there?
So 6 years ago, I caught tuberculosis in Korea, like the active kind, where I was like coughing up blood.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's like two kinds, like passive and active. So it was really serious. It was all over the Korean news actually. And
Your case was all over the Korean
Yeah.
news? Oh, not tuberculosis,
no,
specifically
yeah,
you.
only me.
Oh, okay.
It's not like COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was taken to the ER and hospitalized right away. Yeah.
Did you have to ride in the ambulance to get to the ER, or did you
Yeah,
wait?
they made me. I wanted to take the public transportation, but they
But you're
required me.
contagious,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
very contagious. And I was like, I've been riding the bus for like an hour, like weeks.
Wow.
And just didn't know.
Yeah.
So did you think you had a cold?
Yeah, I thought I had a cold. And
Okay.
because we're from the US, like we're like so against going to the doctors.
Yeah.
We always just get over it, but apparently it was something really contagious. And so they made me take an ambulance. And I thought it was like, oh my God, it's going to be like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, how
I don't
much
want to
was
go. It was like only 200.
Wait. So it was
But
$200.
It was 200 from a different city. Like from
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how far was it?
From like a different city to Seoul.
Yeah. So in the US, that'd be like
Yeah, it's like 3,000.
at least $1,000. I think it's more than 1,000.
But in Seoul, I think it's less than 100, I'm sure.
So you were living outside of Seoul at that time,
yeah.
right? And then you took the ambulance to Seoul.
Yeah, to
from
Seoul.
another city, and then you paid $200.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was my only expense. So yeah, when I got there, they just like hospitalized me. It was during the day, so it wasn't that it was a little different. So the ERs in Korea, they operate differently in day and night.
Okay, why? Like, what do you mean? What's different?
So during the day, it's like for real emergencies, like oh my God, someone's dying. But then ER during the nights and weekends, the hospitals are all closed, so people just go there
For like regular treatment?
Yeah, regular treatment.
Okay, that makes sense. Like even for my cancer treatment, I go on the weekends, and they gave me this sheet of paper that says like, if you have this or this condition, feel free to go to the emergency room. But the things that are listed there are like, I have a fever.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like my stomach hurts. And so I was just like, why would I go to the
That's
emergency
the biggest
room?
difference in Korean like medical system and in the US medical system is that in the US you try to avoid going to hospitals or like emergency room, everything. But in Korea, it's very common to go to the hospital or get medical attention as soon as you have one symptom.
Right. They'll be like, achoo, I sneezed. I gotta go to the doctor.
And so that's why the ER at night is so different in Korea. It's like people just go there for like a cold or like they have an upset stomach. ER is just like the backup to like there's no hospital that's open, so they just go to the ER.
Okay, so you're saying like during the day and on weekdays there are medical centers like clinics that people can go to, but once those places close, there's nowhere else to go but the emergency room. So that's like who's in there at those times.
Right.
Okay.
And so it's not technically an emergency
at that time.
So there are emergencies, but there are also like regular things that you go for.
So it functions as both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense. Now that makes
I didn't
sense to
know
me.
that.
I didn't know that too until right now. So like you said that your only expense was the ambulance. So did you have insurance at that time?
Yes, I had like international insurance. So
Is from the Korean government, or
no, it was
you
like
had your own
international.
stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So your insurance covered everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Right now, I'm using the Korean National Insurance because I work here for my cancer treatment, and I know that in the case of a serious illness,
Mm-hmm.
the Korean government covers about 80 to 90% of your expenses. So I also don't pay for most of my cancer treatment, but I think like tuberculosis would also be considered a serious illness.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like which one of those is more serious, but one of them is clearly more like quickly deadly. So I think like that would probably be a similar scenario, if not the same scenario. So let's say you had Korean health insurance. I think that you'd only be paying about 90. I mean, you'd be paying 10% of your medical expenses.
Right.
Yeah. So like at the time you weren't like unconscious, you weren't so sick that you lost consciousness, so that means like you were there when you arrived, like you were conscious when you arrived at the ambulance.
Yeah.
So like what kind of things happened when you first arrived, do you remember?
It was actually a little different for my case because I was in my city outside of Seoul, and they had already contacted the hospital that I was going to.
Oh, okay.
And so they had already made arrangements for when I arrived there to just like quarantine me immediately. But when I go there for regular cases with my students, and they had like seizures or sick chickenpox, during COVID you have to get tested first. But outside of COVID, they make you fill out a form, and then you have one guardian, who it was me, and then they just take you in and put you in like a bed and treat you.
So like, are there forms that you have to fill out as the guardian?
Yeah.
But it's just their basic information?
Right.
Okay.
It was actually really easy.
I think a lot of your students didn't speak Korean, right?
Right.
So are the staff able to speak English usually, or do you have to speak Korean when you get there? Like, you're speaking for the students?
A lot of them don't speak English.
Okay.
But actually they understand English, because actually medical school in Korea is all of their textbooks are in English.
That's right.
So they understand English, but it's just like they feel a little bit more timid speaking it. But there are usually like one or two staff that actually do speak English, and they try their best to help you out.
So it depends on the hospital, but if you end up in a private hospital, a lot of them nowadays have an international center. So they have an English-speaking nurse that's there. So if the doctor doesn't speak English, you can ask the nurse to join in on your appointment, and they'll be there to translate for you and speak for you. They're not there on weekends, so if you have a weekend emergency, then maybe you have to struggle through the Korean. Yeah, if you go there on a weekday, you might have an English nurse. Also, like, from my experience so far, it's all over the place as far as like whether the doctor speaks English or not, but some of them do speak English, and some of them did like residencies or fellowships abroad.
Right.
And I think nowadays there's even nursing programs. My friend is a nurse, and he's doing a nursing fellowship in like Dubai. So for those kind of things, they learn English. So there's a chance anyway that there will be somebody there who understands you, but at the bare minimum, everyone knows like medical terms in English, because that's how they studied it. So as long as you can like get your app out and say like the medical condition, or they pull out their app and you know the medical condition, then it should be like okay, pretty smooth.
Yeah, with the app I think everything can work.
Yeah. So when you had tuberculosis and it was like your case of going to the emergency room, were you alone, or did anyone go with you?
I was alone at the time, but I'm okay being
alone. Korea has like this boja thing, which just translates to
guardian.
It's guardian, but on my hospital paper they actually wrote something else. I think they wrote caregiver.
Oh yeah, caregiver.
But anyway, it's like in the US. Have you been to the hospital in the US?
No.
Oh, okay. I've been to the hospital in the US.
Never.
Yeah, in the US, like, it's kind of like the nurse's job to take care of you. So, like, the nurse brings you food, and the nurse checks on you, like, how you're doing. But in Korea, I mean, it's changed nowadays, especially with COVID, when you can't really have a lot of people join you at the hospital. But it's kind of like you have to bring somebody who takes care of you. And that person used to have to bring your food and like wash you and take you to the bathroom. So I think now, I mean, they still have to take you to the bathroom. She was my 보호자 for one of the hospital visits, and like she had to help me get to the bathroom and like stuff like that. Like if you throw up or something, like that person grabs the trash can. Yeah,
and I think they want you to have a guardian so that if something goes wrong, you can like alert someone. Immediately.
Yeah. But you can also just give a phone number of the 보호자. They don't have to be there necessarily, but in my case, when I went there without a 보호자, the nurses kept asking me, "Where's your guardian?" And I was just like, "Leave me alone." So just something to keep in mind. Like if you have to go to the hospital and you have time to plan it out, maybe ask somebody to go with you. Actually, I've been to the emergency room in the US for other people, and they're like infamous for you having to sit there for hours and hours waiting because there's just so many people there, and also they're trying to prioritize like whose emergency is the biggest emergency.
Oh.
But did you feel like it was like that in Korea?
No way.
Okay.
If you go there, like they're so accommodating and there's no like real wait per se. And they're trying to help everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, okay, when you watch on like a K-drama about somebody having an emergency, they always end up in this room that's full of these small beds and maybe a curtain. And so is that where you were initially when they were maybe not you, but like your students? Is that where everyone was, those small beds?
Yeah, unless you're contagious, then they like quarantine you, but otherwise everyone's in those small beds with curtains in between.
Okay.
Yeah, and the hospitals are really clean too here. It's like really nice facilities. It almost looks like a shopping mall. Yeah, or a museum. So it's nice being there.
Okay. Oh wait. So when you go to the emergency room, do you have to put on an outfit?
No, I don't.
Like
Not
none of the patients put on the outfit?
Patients do. That I don't.
Because you're the bohoja.
Yeah.
But the patients put on the costume. I don't want to call it a costume. They put on the uniform.
Yeah, they did. I think, yeah.
So like in Korea, the outfit for the hospital is so much better than the US. In the US, it's like a gown and the back is open. But in Korea, it's like pajamas.
Yeah.
There's a shirt and a top, and usually they're like buttons, so you're not like exposed. And I understand why in the US, like they want like very quick access to your body in case something happens, but it's not comfortable and it's not like dignifying. So I really like wearing the Korean medical outfit, the patient outfit, a lot more.
They really take into consideration the mental health of I think people, because when they design their hospitals, they put like an aquarium and like soothing like waterfalls and stuff to kind of like make their patients feel better.
Yeah. My hospital doesn't have an aquarium, but it has a lot of artwork on the walls, and it does kind of feel like a museum in that case. Like I even stopped to take pictures of some of the art because it's just so good. It's not like the US where it's sterile, it's clean, but it's not like all white and depressing.
Yeah, like a prison.
Yeah. Even my outfit that I wear, my outfit's a little bit different, but mine is pink.
Yeah.
And I don't love pink, but I like wearing pink when I'm in a hospital because I'm just like, ooh, fun. What about when you or the students were actually getting treated? Like, were there any cases where they experienced a lot of pain?
There was this student who had something in her back. They had like put like gauze in her back, and then they took it out without painkillers. Because they said that was the only way to take it out. I had to watch that. Oh. That was the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, they didn't give her any painkiller?
They had in the beginning, but I think it was like wearing off.
One thing, like when I had surgery in Korea, like okay, I've had surgery in the US and I've had surgery in Korea. And when I go to the US, they're giving me like the strongest painkillers I've ever had in my life. Like it's the usual things that you've heard of, like Oxycontin, Vicodin, insert other like very strong medicine. So I don't feel anything, like I'm barely conscious. But when I had surgery here, they gave me a painkiller, like I was fully conscious, like there was no loopy anything. And I could actually feel the incision. It wasn't like it hurt, but I could feel it, and I felt like alarmed by that because in the US, like I never felt anything. So actually I called the nurse and I was just like, it hurts. Duh. And she was like, yeah, it's supposed to. Yeah, she was like, it's gonna hurt a little bit, but it'll go away. And I was just like, why did you answer like that was normal? Like you're supposed to take the pain away. So I think like in general, the medications that are prescribed here are a lot weaker. And they don't last as long as the ones in the US. But like the US has a problem with people like abusing prescription drugs after they have surgery and stuff. So I think actually here is the correct way. But it wasn't what I was expecting at all. And so sorry to that girl who had to get something pulled out of her back with some pain. But I think they're just like, pain is part of the process. Yeah. A lot of people, once they found out that I was visiting the hospital, they actually messaged me and they kept asking me how the doctors treat me. So they wanted to know, like, are the doctors nice? And like I've been to clinics and I've been to like my appointments, so in those cases the doctors are nice. But when you think about ER, it can kind of seem like they might not be nice because it's a very like high stress environment. So like what was your experience? Did you feel like they were nice to you and nice to your students?
Yeah, they're nice. It's just that they're very busy, so they want to see it, like they want to see all the patients as fast as possible. But I wouldn't say they were mean.
Okay.
The staff is really nice, you know, like the nurses and the radiology people, and like, they're super nice and like helpful. The doctor on duty is just like the doctor on duty is like general doctor. He doesn't specialize in anything. So they might not know your case well enough, but they'll give you like a temporary diagnosis, what they think it is, and then they try to schedule you with a specialist the next day or the next working day.
Okay.
So they're nice, yeah. I wouldn't say they're...
So then did you have to, I mean, of course for tuberculosis you had to stay there for a long time, but like for your other students, was it pretty much like they had to stay in the ER until they were able to see the specialist? And then the ER was just kind of like maintaining their condition?
So if it's a severe case, they have to stay overnight and then they see a specialist the next working day, or the specialist will come to them. But if it's not severe and you're stable enough to go home, they'll discharge you and then they'll book you an appointment with the specialist.
Oh, okay, so you have to go back later whenever they made the appointment for you. Okay, okay, that makes sense. So those are pretty much all my general questions about the emergency room, but what would you say is like the number one need to know thing for anyone who finds themselves in the emergency room in Korea?
Okay, before you go to the emergency room, you have to have these things ready. Your passport or your ARC card. And your insurance card. But the thing is, the ER in Korea, they operate independently of the hospital in terms of insurance. So they usually are not able to process your international insurance. They don't have the system to process your insurance, so you might have to pay out of pocket and then go back later to the international clinic during business hours to cancel that and then put your insurance through.
What is an international clinic? What do you mean?
So like most big hospitals, they have an international center. Or that's international clinic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, international center.
Okay. That's like where the nurse is too. It's called international center.
Yeah,
I didn't know what else they're doing.
And they deal with all the foreigner and international insurances.
So you pay up front first, and then you take all the receipts to the international center to basically cancel those payments? Right. Okay, and then
unless you have Korean insurance.
Okay.
So it's different if you're like Korean insurance resident here or like foreigner.
So if you have Korean insurance, they would just process your payment regularly, and actually you don't need an insurance card. They would just look up your ID number, and then it just pulls up your insurance information automatically because you're in the government system. But okay, I have a question about the international center again. So you take your stuff to the international center, and they cancel your payment, and then what happens?
And then they charge your international insurance.
So they
put
up.
it through. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So you have to give them your international insurance information in the center, and then they'll charge that instead.
But you just have to make sure that it covers emergency costs, and like to what extent.
Okay.
But I mean, if your life is on the line, I'm sure.
Like, doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter.
It's probably better if you get discharged during the day, because then you can just go straight to the international clinic and get your insurance right through. But if you happen to be discharged during the night where the ER is only operational, then you might have to pay out of pocket. So I didn't know this, and a lot of students didn't know that. So they're like, I don't have the money, so I had to like back it up with my personal money. The school should have paid it, but like
I didn't know this either.
So have emergency cash always.
On that note, I'll be sure to include some international insurances in the description down below. I'll find out which insurance Christine used. I also had international insurance when I first came to Korea. I switched to the national insurance, but I thought it was pretty good, so I'll include that one down below as well. Also, on the note of not being able to pay for your hospital bills potentially, I highly recommend you check out another video that I made with Christine on banking hacks that you need to know before visiting Korea. One of those hacks is also to prepare a credit card or a debit card that has no foreign transaction fees, so you could always use that to pay for your hospital bills if you find that you're in trouble, which I hope that you don't, but if you do, better to be prepared.
So one more thing is that, especially if you're American, you kind of have this tendency to kind of avoid going to hospitals because you're scared of the bills, or like you just don't like going there. Or just out of habit, you just tend not to go there and like think, oh, I can get over it. But in Korea, it's so accessible, and so like the healthcare system here is so good. So we can like encourage you to go to the hospital so that you can prevent big like emergencies happening.
I think like when I first got here, especially, I never went to the hospital.
Yeah, me too.
People would always be telling me that I needed to go, and sometimes like I was very sick, but I was just like, no, I'm just gonna sleep it off.
Get over it.
I have NyQuil, I have Dayquil, like I'm set.
Or like you have like one cough, and your Korean coworkers like, you should go to the hospital.
But they really go.
They go.
And I think like this year is the first year that I started going more often, and like that's how I caught that I have cancer. I also had like other smaller illnesses like a throat infection and stuff like that. And I just like really didn't want to go to the doctor, but then I went and I was so amazed every time I walked out of there, because I was just like, why did I not want to go? Like,
it's so efficient.
Yeah, it was so fast. Like, I was out of there in like 20 minutes, and my bill was like $5 to $20, and I was just like, yeah, especially when I saw the bill, I was just like, why did I spend all this? Like, I spent more effort trying not to go, and I probably spent more money trying not to go than if I had just gone.
It's so funny because I talk about this like really excitedly to my coworkers, and they're all like Canadian and like European, and they're just like looking at me like, yeah, I can't relate.
Yeah,
because we're so excited.
Yeah, but as Americans with terrible healthcare experiences and everything else, like Korean healthcare is very amazing, and so you don't really need to be afraid to go. I understand like if it's because you don't speak Korean or like you don't have insurance. But I mean, even without insurance, it's still so much cheaper than the US. Like, if I had done my whole cancer treatment with no insurance, it still would have costed me less than with insurance in the US.
That's crazy.
So definitely don't shy away. If you're any kind of sick, just go to the doctor.
Yeah, because what I thought I had was a cold, it turned out to be tuberculosis, and they told me if I waited longer, I could have died.
Yeah, so don't risk it. Just go. Alright, so again, I hope that you never find yourself in a situation where you need to go to the emergency room, but thank you so much, Christine, for coming and explaining it in case anyone out there had any more questions. I'm going to include a lot of links in the description down below that include the different insurances you can try, and also the different information that I think that you'll need if you do find yourself in the emergency room. But if you find that you have any more questions about this topic or any other topic related to a real life in Korea, feel free to leave a comment down below. As always, thanks for watching. Bye! 다음에 봐요. You didn't do it.
Am I supposed to do it?
Yeah, that was the last time.
Sorry.
No, we're not doing it. Okay.